Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
It's our history unit today. And usually when we talk about history, we might talk about a country, various wars they've had, different presidents or different emperors and stuff like that. But today we're actually going to talk about the history of plants. And we're talking about some plants that have changed the world. How could that be? Plants just grow there. Sometimes they're weeds. They get in our way. We just have to pick them and get rid of them. How could plants have any effect on human history?
Well, we know that plants are very vital to our nutrition. And so we're going to talk about how some of these plants have helped change how healthy we are, which is really important. And sometimes, without the right nutrients and foods, we can't travel long distances because, foods get old. Right. They go bad. Right. As we say, food goes bad. So we have discovered that some of these plants have helped us explore the world in different ways. We're going to talk about how that's related or linked.
We certainly will talk about those things. So let's get to it, everybody. Here's the entire contents of our lesson read one time. We make use of many plants in our daily lives. However, rarely does it occur to us that some plants have drastically changed the course of human history. One example is citrus fruits, which are great sources of vitamin C. This was important to explorers who sailed around the world between the 16th and 18th centuries. Sailors with no access to fresh fruit and vegetables would suffer from scurvy, a disease caused by a deadly lack of vitamin C. James Lind, a Scottish doctor, found that eating oranges and limes cured scurvy patients almost overnight. He passed this information on to Captain James Cook. Thanks to citrus fruits, Cook sailed all the way to Australia and New Zealand without his sailors falling victim to the disease. Aboard Captain Cook's ship was a plant collector named Joseph Banks. When Cook reached Australia, Banks found the huge eucalyptus trees native to that land. He was immediately impressed by their beauty and took some samples. Eucalyptus trees became valuable once people realized they could be employed for many practical purposes. The oils they produce are used in foods and medicinal products, while the tree's fibers are made into paper, cardboard, and more. Thanks to Banks's discovery, eucalyptus trees quickly spread around the globe. Ferns are some of the oldest plants in the world, the earliest having appeared around 335 million years ago. When these prehistoric ferns died, they were often buried by mud. By the time humans appeared, the dead plant material had been transformed into the black carbon-rich material we know as coal. Coal fueled the industrial age, powering ships, steam engines, factories, and more. However, all of this has also contributed to air pollution and global warming. Who would have thought that simple plants like ferns could have had such an enormous impact on history?
Okay, guys, let's dive into our article today, the plants that have changed the world. True confession, I love plants. And if you ever come to my apartment, you'll feel like you're walking into a jungle.
Ooh.
Yes, I have so many houseplants inside my apartment. I love them. They make me happy. So we're going to find out how plants have changed the world now. We use many plants in our daily lives. However, rarely does it occur to us that some plants have drastically changed the course of human history. Hard to imagine that a little plant actually changed history. When something's drastic, it's pretty extreme, you could say. So it has a really strong or far-reaching effect, very radical, very extreme. So it changed the course of history in a big way, you could say. So what's one example? In our second paragraph there, we're going to talk about citrus fruits. I'm from Arizona, a state in the southwest part of the United States, and we're famous for citrus. Citrus includes grapefruit, oranges, tangerines, all of those yummy types of fruits that grow in trees, and they are great sources of vitamin C. So one example of how plants have changed the history of the world is due to citrus fruits. Let's talk about how this works.
Yeah, let's talk about how this works. It says here, this was important to explorers who sailed around the world between the 16th and 18th centuries. So citrus fruits were very important to those sailors. They were explorers. An explorer is somebody who explores someplace. Back then, the New World was just discovered by European sailors from Spain and England and places like that. And they sailed the ocean blue looking for new things in the New World. So they sailed around the world to North America, South America, and then around the bottom back over to Asia and stuff like that. This happened way back in the 16th and 17th centuries and the 18th centuries as well. And sailors with no access to fresh fruit and vegetables would suffer from scurvy. Scurvy is a kind of disease. I'm not sure what the symptoms are, but if you suffer from a lack of vitamin C, you have some symptoms. I guess maybe your hair falls out or something like that.
Your skin has spots on it or something. It's gross. Yeah,
and you have wounds that don't really heal and stuff like that. So sometimes you hear pirates call other sailors, "Hey, hoist that scurvy dog from the yard arm there. Make him walk the plank." But here again, these sailors would suffer from scurvy, which is a deadly lack of vitamin C. A lack of means you don't have it.
Yeah.
And deadly means it can kill you.
It can kill you. Now, there's a guy named James Lind. He was a Scottish doctor, and he discovered or found that eating oranges and limes, a lime is another type of citrus fruit, cured scurvy patients almost overnight. What a great discovery. Just by eating some oranges and limes, these scurvy patients were cured of all those awful symptoms. Actually, you could die from scurvy, too.
Sure.
That was the danger of going on these long trips overseas on boats. You know, some of the sailors would die because they couldn't get enough citrus. Anyway, he discovered this. That smart doctor put 2 and 2 together and said, oh, look at that. If they eat oranges and limes, these scurvy patients get better very quickly. If you say something happens almost overnight, it's almost immediate that you see a great effect. So he passed this information on to the very famous Captain James Cook. If you pass information on to somebody, you can do it in different ways. You can write to them. You can tell them verbally. You can, I don't know, use your hands to communicate and gesture. But you can pass information on in different ways to people. And he decided this was information that James Cook needed to have because it was important.
Yeah, I remember back in college, I helped narrate a friend's video project, and then his professor said, hey, pass on a compliment to your friend there. He did a good job narrating your project there. Pass on a compliment.
Nice.
So here, this information was passed on to Captain Cook, or Captain James Cook. He's an English explorer. I guess he was active in the 1700s there, going to Australia and New Zealand and places like that. And thanks to citrus fruits, Cook sailed all the way to Australia, down under, and also to New Zealand, without his sailors falling victim to the disease. So Captain Cook was able to take some citrus fruits with him on his adventures to Australia and New Zealand, and so his sailors did not fall victim to this disease. If you fall victim to something, that means you are a victim of that thing. You suffer. You could fall victim to robbery, for example. If you're not careful, if you don't lock your house, you might fall victim to robbery, etc.
You can also just substitute suffer. So they sailed all the way to these countries without his sailors suffering from, you need the from, the preposition from, suffering from the disease of scurvy. That's what we're talking about. Wow, that changed a lot of things. That allowed them to go on very, very long trips. Now, aboard Captain Cook's ship was a plant collector named Joseph Banks. Now, back in the day, back in history, when we were learning about this big world of ours and people were exploring new places, they would often take along guys that were scientists who would make notes and do a lot of collecting of new things, like different foods they found, different plants they found, different animals too. And one of the people aboard Captain Cook's ship was a plant collector. His name was Joseph Banks, and his job was to note all the different kind of greenery and plants found in these different countries.
That's right. And when Cook reached Australia, Banks found the huge eucalyptus trees native to that land. My goodness, I wish I knew how to say eucalyptus in Chinese. I can't, but basically it's some kind of big tree that is native to Australia. It has been transplanted elsewhere. You can get all sorts of things from it. And especially, I think, koalas love to eat eucalyptus leaves. In fact, I don't think they can eat anything else, or they don't like to eat anything else besides eucalyptus trees.
Now, I'm just handing Tom what eucalyptus is in Chinese, at least in my dictionary. What is it, Tom?
I think it's anshu, an with a muzibian. I think that's how it's pronounced.
Now, you have to be careful. If you're like me and you watch cooking shows, you know that eucalyptus is kind of a popular new fragrance or essence. But if you eat too much of it, it will kill you. It's poison.
You gotta watch out.
Be careful.
But yes, here, Joseph Banks discovered that tree, or he saw it there, and he was immediately impressed by the beauty of those eucalyptus trees and took some samples. So yes, he saw the tree, he went, wow, that is so cool.
Yeah.
I am so impressed. So if you are impressed by something or impressed with something, that means it creates a very strong impression on you. It kind of bowls you over. Wow, that is so cool. I am so impressed. I met somebody the other day who started studying English 2 months ago, and now they're totally fluent. I was so impressed.
Oh, wow. They're a genius. Well, he was impressed by their beauty and took some samples. That was his job, to take samples home and show people what they had found in these other lands. Now, eucalyptus trees became valuable once people realized they could be employed for many practical purposes. Now, we use the verb to employ to talk about things other than just giving someone a job. If you employ somebody, you're giving somebody a job. Here, we're using employ to say we're making use of something. So you can use different methods or employ different methods to collect different samples or data. They realized that they could use or employ eucalyptus trees for many practical purposes. If something's practical, it means it's useful. It's not just something you read about or think about. It has an actual use that can help people. It's not just a theory or an idea.
Yeah, sometimes people just eat nutritious food because it's practical. They don't care what it tastes like or what it smells like or looks like. They just want the nutrition. They're being very practical. And indeed, eucalyptus trees have many practical uses or practical purposes, which we'll talk about here in the next couple of minutes. But right now, we're going to take a break and listen to our Chinese teacher.
Hello everyone, my name is Tina. 今天我们要探讨的主题是改变世界的植物。首先来看一下第一个空格的句子提到 However, rarely blank one to us that some plants have drastically changed the course of human history.后面 that 的子句提到有些植物呢事实上是巨幅的改变了人类的历史。在这里要注意的是我们句子开头是一个否定的副词 rarely， 所以后面接的句子要倒装，所以第一题我们答案选的就是 C 选项 Does it occur？ 还记得吗？ It occurs to somebody that 就有代表着某人突然想到，所以这句话的意思要说，然而我们却很少会想到有一些植物事实上巨幅地改变了人类的历史。那么接着我们来看到第二个空格，第二段叙述的是 citrus fruits， 也就是这些柑橘类的水果。Sailors with no blank to fresh fruit and vegetables would suffer from scurvy。 这些水手呢，如果没有怎么样新鲜的水果跟蔬菜，就会呢罹患坏血病。在这里我们看一下第二个空格 A 选项 dedication 奉献， B limitation 限制， C efficiency 效率， D access 取得的方法跟途径。如果水手没有办法取得新鲜的水果跟蔬菜，当然就会缺乏维他命 C， 患了这个坏血病。所以第二题的标准答案我们就选择 D access。接着我们来看到第三个空格 Thanks to citrus fruits, Cook sailed all the way to Australia and New Zealand, blank 3, his sailors falling victim to the disease. 多亏有了这样子柑橘类的水果，这个 Captain Cook 他就一路的航行到了澳洲以及纽西兰，而正因为有了丰富的柑橘类水果，所以他的水手都没有成为坏血病的牺牲者。所以搭配文意，第三题我们可以选择 A 选项的 without somebody doing something， 也就是代表这样子的人没有发生这样子的状况。接着我们要看的是尤加利树，在第四个空格的句子提到 Eucalyptus trees became blank 4 once people realized they could be employed for many practical purposes。也就是说，一旦人类理解到其实尤加利树可以被用来做很多实际的用途的时候，尤加利树就变得怎么样了呢？第四题 A 选项 valuable 有价值的， B contagious 有传染性的， C tolerable 可忍受的， D conscious 有意识的。这个植物有这么多实用的目的，当然就变得相当的有价值，所以第四题的标准答案就选择 A valuable。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Okay, let's continue with our lesson. We're talking about some of the ways in which plants have changed history. We were talking about citrus fruits and how they helped Captain Cook on his adventures to Australia and New Zealand. And then aboard his ship was Joseph Banks, the Scottish plant expert, and he discovered eucalyptus trees in Australia. He went, wow, I'm so impressed. And those trees can be employed or used for lots of practical purposes. For example, the oils they produce are used in foods and medicinal products. So these are oils that you can get from the tree, maybe from the bark or from the wood or from the leaves, different kinds of oil. And they can be used in cooking, and they can also be used for medicines, and the adjective for medicine is medicinal, like medicinal purposes or medicinal drugs.
Now, the tree's fibers, the fiber is in the bark of the tree, in the branches like that. They're made into paper, cardboard, and more. Cardboard is that very thick paper. Usually boxes are made of cardboard. If you can picture that, you'll know what cardboard is. So thanks to Banks's discovery, eucalyptus trees quickly spread around the globe. So they didn't really have them in other parts of the world, but because they were so useful and practical, people were taking small eucalyptus trees from that area, Australia, New Zealand, and transporting them to other parts of the world, like North America and Europe.
Indeed, and now we can all benefit from eucalyptus trees thanks to Captain Cook and his botanist, Joseph Banks. Now, here, moving on to the final paragraph, it says, ferns are some of the oldest plants in the world. The earliest having appeared around 335 million years ago. So these are ferns, which are different kinds of plants. They're kind of hard to describe. I think it's yachi, or yangchi, rather, in Chinese. Not tooth, but actually goat teeth. We don't call it that in English, but I believe that's the Chinese colloquial term for it. They're kind of plants that have really long and narrow leaves, and they're really long at the base, and they get shorter and shorter as they work out toward the tip. And, of course, ferns are all over the place here in Taiwan. But ferns have been around in the world for millions of years. I think the dinosaurs actually ate them.
There's a particular fern that's pretty popular called the Boston fern. And, of course, in Chinese, they just translate it, Boston, and then 圣蕨 is that sword. Their leaves kind of look like swords. Okay. So that's the Boston fern. That's probably the most plentiful fern found in the world. So they're really, really old plants. I didn't realize they'd been around for so long. They appeared around 335 million years ago. So when these prehistoric ferns died, they were often buried by mud. Mud is a combination of dirt, of course, and water. When you talk about something being prehistoric, it was before history was written down by men. So it was a long, long time ago. So they were buried by mud. If you're buried, it means you're underneath the ground. So by the time humans appeared, at that time in history, the dead plant material had actually transformed while it had been buried in that mud. It transformed into this black, carbon-rich material known today as coal, which we burn for energy today. So it's kind of an interesting transformation after millions of years that it would transform so greatly from a plant to some sort of energy.
And, of course, coal is carbon-rich. It has a lot of carbon in it. And, of course, coal was mined here in Taiwan for a while. There are former coal mines out in Shifenliao and places like that, and probably in other parts of Taiwan as well. Not so much anymore, but, again, there's a lot of carbon in coal, and coal kind of changed the world. It fueled the industrial age to fuel something. In this particular case, fuel is being used as a verb. It just means to provide a source of power or to provide a source of energy for something. Food fuels the human body, for example. And fuel can also be a noun. Gasoline is a kind of fuel. And here, coal fueled the Industrial Revolution, which took place back in the 1800s when we moved from a agricultural kind of world to a more industrial one with, factories producing products and stuff like that.
Steam, and factories and people working inside these places producing things. Yeah, it changed things. Coal was also able to power ships. Before that, the ships had to rely on wind power, of course, and just their sails.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they had access to coal engines, steam engines, and from then, it just changed the world. We went from there to electricity. So coal really is widely used even today, especially in some of the developing countries. We're trying to get rid of our dependence on coal because it's bad for our air. China still is quite dependent on coal.
I think India is too.
Yeah.
That's going to be a big problem for air pollution and stuff like that. So yes, indeed, coal burning has contributed to air pollution and global warming. And we're going to finish here with a question. Who would have thought that simple plants like ferns could have had such an enormous impact on history? So ferns here, as we said earlier, were ancient plants that kind of decayed underground. They were buried by mud. You can also say buried with mud.
Yeah.
That's acceptable too. And I knew that was true. I didn't know which plant it was for coal. And I think petroleum or gasoline is also kind of a result of the same process. process. Ancient plants being buried underground.
True.
And over millions of years, they change into something that can be burned. So coal, indeed, is the example we're mentioning here. So yeah, who would have thought? We use this question form when we talk about something to be truly amazing. Who would have thought that my cousin Don could have attended Harvard? He was so dumb. He was such an idiot when I was a kid, and later on he went to Harvard. Who would have thought?
Yeah, that's totally surprising. Well, if something's enormous, guys, it just means it's really, really big. It could have a large size. It could have a large impact. It could be large in extent or quantity. But here we're talking about impact. So kind of, the result that plants have had on our history has been really quite big. It's funny because we don't often look at plants and think, oh, those plants, they've just changed the course of history. They're just kind of pretty these days, right? We use them for our food, and they're beautiful to look at least for me. I love plants. But actually, they've changed the course of history. We forget sometimes that plants also provide other things like fuel, and not just nutrition, but fuel. And I don't know, different medicines that we need to keep alive today, which is really nice.
And food and even fuel, like ethanol or gasohol.
And products like our boxes come from plants. Trees count. Trees are plants too.
So I suppose you'll never look at plants the same way again.
No. Right now, guys, we're going to listen to some more explanation from our Chinese teacher, and then we'll be back to wrap up.
接下来要介绍的是蕨类植物。第5个空格提到的是 Ferns are some of the oldest plants in the world. The earliest blank 5 around 335 million years ago. 蕨类植物呢，其实可以说是世界上最老的植物之一了。最早的蕨类植物呢，出现在西元3亿3500万年前。在这里我们要考的是同学们句型结构，前面是一个完整的句子，主词是 ferns， 动词是 are， 后面有受词，后面也是一个句子，主词是 the earliest。 那么如果要是前后都是完整的句子，我们需要的是逗号再加一个连接词，可是在这里呢， the earliest 前面并没有连接词，所以我们采用的是分词构句的用法。讲到最早出现的蕨类，那么在这里动词就改用主动的，而且是过去已经发生，所以采用的是完成式。所以第5题考同学文法观念，正确答案就选择 B 选项的 having appeared。 接着第6个空格 By the time humans appeared, the dead plant material blank 6 into the black carbon-rich material we know as coal. 在这里要注意的是 by the time 到了什么什么的时候就怎么样了，所以呢 by the time 所连接的句子后面的这个主要的句子呢，常常是以完成式来表达。所以等到人类真正出现的时候呢，这个已经死亡的植物物质就已经变成了黑色富含碳，也就是我们现在所知道的煤咯。所以在这里搭配 by the time 这样的文法句型，我们要选用的是过去完成式，所以第6题的标准答案就选择 D had been transformed。 第7个空格 However, all of this has also blank 7 air pollution and global warming。然而呢，这一切呢也怎么样？然后空气污染以及全球暖化的现象，在这里提到的当然是煤咯。那么第7题 A 选项 gotten rid of 去除， B made up for 补偿， C contributed to 导致， D stemmed from起源于，因为燃烧煤炭就导致了空气污染以及全球暖化的现象，所以第7题的标准答案就选择 C contributed to。 以上就是今天的课文讲解，谢谢收听。
That's it for today, everybody. So remember, plants are your friends and treat them with respect.
Yeah.
They have been an important part of history. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.